because you can't possibly know everything about every aspect of what you might be trying to do. But just think small. Think about the stuff you know really well that you're really into, and think of a better way to do it, and just keep trying, keep iterating.
Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat of Take the Doughnut, here to help you get inspiration and get donuts. I'm a motivational keynote speaker, and today I'm bringing you a very exciting Take the Doughnut interview with Jonathan John Klein, who is the co-founder of TAPP Media, the former president of CNN US, and the co-founder of TAPP Media. As a producer and showrunner, John has won 8 Emmy Awards, 4 Peabody Awards, and 2 DuPont Columbia Awards. Welcome.
Nice to be here. Not only have I taken the donut, I've made the donuts. How about that?
That's my favorite thing. I think it's not just about what's put in front of you. It's about, can you create the opportunities as well? And so I'm especially excited to talk with you. And I didn't mention it up front in that first part of your bio, but we both are Brown grads. So that's how we're connected here. And I've been having a lot of fun having conversations with some Brown grads in this series. So I'm really looking forward to getting into some serious questions with you. But first, I have to ask, what's your favorite donut?
Well, it used to be glazed, because like a freshly made warm glazed. But then I worked at a bagel store where we actually made donuts. And the way that we made glazed donuts in particular was gross. It was really not good. And I won't even go into the details, but it was the sugar. Yeah, put it this way. You take a stick, you run it through a row of newly fried dough, and you take this, now you've got a ring, a whole row of donuts with the thing, and you dip them into a vat of sugar, and then you place it on a pegboard above the vat so that the excess sugar will run down back into the vat. But that vat only got changed once a year on Passover. When you had to give out all the guy. And what's drawn to sugar is all kinds of things.
Oh,
And
no.
so I couldn't eat those ever again. And so now my favorite is Bavarian cream.
Well, there it is. It's so funny because when you first said a bagel shop that also did donuts, I thought to myself, it's so strange because I haven't really seen places that specialize in bagels also doing donuts. And that's probably why.
We did it all. It was bagels are great. I still love bagels. Nothing wrong with the way bagels are made. So,
But it made you look askance at the glazed donut of your
horror.
life. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, you pivoted. You found a new donut. That's the
Didn't
great
want to give
news.
them up entirely. So
I mean, there's so many options out there. My goodness. Wow, what an interesting answer. This you never know what you're going to hear around here. But I am interested to get into the more of the details of your life, and I think the place to start with that is that, I said a little bit about your background up front, but tell us more about yourself. Generally speaking, what should we know about you?
I wanted to be a screenwriter after I graduated from Brown. They had a program at the time where there was a student written musical competition every year, and my friends and I won the competition 2 years in a row. So we got to write an original musical and see it performed on stage. And grown-ups from the community in Providence who had paid money for a season-long subscription would show up and watch our stuff. And we got a standing ovation for the first one that we ever wrote. And I just said, that's what I want to do for a living. And I got into the news business in order to make money while I wrote screenplays. And skip ahead now, however many decades later, the only script, I ended up selling 7 or 8 scripts, but my news career moved a lot faster and further, and it was more satisfying than I thought it was going to be originally. The only film that got made with my name on it, behind me, you can see this poster for The Buffalo Soldier starring Danny Glover. So I wrote that. I wrote the first draft of that script. Exactly one line that I wrote survived the rewrite process. So that's Hollywood for you. In the meantime, I was lucky enough to um, first get into the news business. I was at CBS News for 16 years. I started on the overnight shift as a writer. I ended up as the executive VP, and I was overseeing 60 Minutes and the other primetime programming, 48 Hours, stuff like that. And then I have founded a series of internet startups, streaming startups. I also ran an AI startup a few years ago that Apple acquired. And so I've done a bunch of different things and had a lot of fun doing all of it.
What an interesting and varied background. And isn't it funny how sometimes you just say, I'm just going to tuck in here for 5 minutes and you find a thing that you're doing, and then all of a sudden decades go by.
Yeah, I mean, if you love it, the thing about TV news was it has never felt like work. I mean, every day was brand new. There was never homework hanging over your head, like you were done with the newscast at 6:30 and then you went home and it and just all the people you were around. It was sort of like putting on a show. You were putting on a newscast, but it's that same kind of group effort, and it's exciting, and there's cameras and there's cars and all of that, and so it never ever for a single day felt like a job that I had to drag myself out to do. And the news business was morphing in the 40 years that I was in it, and so there were always new challenges, new ways of doing things. I created while I was a producer on this show, 48 Hours. And it occurred to me that, we were doing little 6-minute long real life dramatic stories, people in the middle of something hugely important over the next 48 hours, and you would film those 48 hours. Well, it occurred to me that if I found the right character going through the right series of actions or facing the right kind of problem or challenge, I could make a 2-hour movie out of it with no actors and no scripts. And I pitched that to the CEO of CBS at the time, Howard Stringer. I said, I could make you a movie of the week that costs a fraction of what you're paying for a standard movie that's got actors and scripts. He said, well, try one. And we tried one, and we got 20 million viewers, and I ended up doing 6 of those. And this was the mid 90s. This was the first reality programming on a major TV network. And so, they're always, and then from there, that's when I then became a suit. And that was a whole learning experience. And, if you're open to learning your whole life, everything becomes really interesting, and you're not daunted by the challenge, because if you accept that you might be entering an area that you don't know anything about, or you don't know everything, then you can just enjoy the process of learning and growing. That's been the story of my career. Mm. I left that cushy executive job at CBS after 3 years, and I joined Web 1.0 startup. I launched a startup, and it was venture backed, so I had to learn the whole process of how you raise money. And then for the first time, so I get to my startup, I hire a bunch of people, engineers, marketers, salespeople, all of whom knew way more about what they did than I knew. I didn't know. All I knew was I want to create the first news video aggregation site online. This was 1998. So this was 6 years before YouTube existed, 7 years. And that's all I knew, was that's what I wanted to do. I had no idea how to do it. The engineers knew that. So I really needed them. And I needed advertisers to support it. I had never sold an ad. So the ad sales guys knew how to do that. And I had to learn from them. So you want to be mindful of how little you know, and that you're not expected to know everything. And if you're open to that, you can be very successful.
what an important lesson you learned along the way. And there's a lot of sort of like micro steering that you were doing throughout your career to keep landing in these different opportunities and creating these different opportunities. So I'm excited to dive into that even more. But let me reset this conversation for people who haven't seen a Take the Doughnut interview before. You may be wondering why there are donuts behind me. Take the Doughnut for me is another way to say carpe diem, and it's all about going after the things that you want in life. And it comes from a strange thing that happened to me at Brown, where I left a real donut on a table, and it became an object lesson for me almost instantly and what it looks like to leave opportunities behind. So I don't want to do that anymore. I want to take the donut instead of leaving opportunities behind. So this conversation is all about going after goals, going after dreams, opportunities, and what does that look like day to day when we actually do it. So for you, John, how are you with going after goals? What is that process like for you?
I'm incessant. I mean, but I'm lucky because I had parents, especially my mom, who I was the only boy, I had an older sister and a younger sister. And so I was the prince. And so my mom made me feel that I was the smartest, best, most gifted person in the world. And I believed it until I, messed up a few times. But that confidence really helped me in situations, that were brand new, like writing musicals. It just gave me the confidence to say, hey, we can do this. And I went to my two buddies. I saw a flyer for the musical writing contest. I went to my two buddies who were very funny. I said, let's write. And they said, what do we know about writing a musical? We can't do that. I was like, how much do you have to know? How hard could it be? Let's just do it. And we did it. And, I was the news director of the radio station at Brown, which is, WBRU. It was a 50,000 watt commercial rock and roll station at the time. And they had a news format that was like a half-hour newscast at night at 6 at night, and then a half-hour public affairs interview show at 6:30. And it was so boring. I couldn't imagine who on earth cared about that. And so I blew it up and changed the format completely into little short bits that were interspersed throughout the day. So you could always be getting news rather than, just throwing a big brick in the middle of all this progressive rock that we were playing, for now. So part of it is I was just lucky to get, to have to be bred with that confidence. But, everyone should have confidence. And here's why. Everybody knows something about something. They know it really well. And it could be, you might know all about flossing. You might know all about raising kids. You might know all about how to make a donut. Whatever it is, there's something in your world, parallel parking, that you know more about than most people know. And that's the root of any kind of innovation or opportunity, because I'm sure that it will have occurred to you, and whatever it is that you do a lot of that you love, you probably have some thoughts about how you could do it better or how it could be done better. And that's the beginning of innovation. It isn't that a lightning bolt hits you out of the blue and you've got this idea for reality television. Over time, little by little, you do enough story. I mean, it took me 5 years. I didn't have that insight until I was 5 years in. But the way it began was, boy, that one story I did in year 2, that one could have gone on, maybe I could have done, I was only supposed to deliver a 6-minute story, but that one could have been 20 minutes. It just goes back in the recesses of your brain. And then as you're talking with your camera crew, you might say, well, if we were doing this story for 20 minutes, what would we have to do in order to make that happen? It becomes a conversation. And so everybody's got that kernel. Think about when you were kids and you had a box of crayons. You weren't daunted about like, well, how am I going to color this in? Or how am I going to draw a picture of a snowman? You just do it. And so if you sort of tell yourself, I don't have to do this for the public initially, I can just try some stuff all by myself. It's easier than ever to find out how to do X, Y, or Z thing. During COVID, my wife learned how to finish our unfinished basement, going on YouTube, just watching YouTube videos. And she ended up, other than the electric, she did everything and just finished our basement. And it looks fantastic. And so everybody can do something. You just, especially if you tell yourself, I'm not going to show anybody initially, I'm just going to try this stuff. Over time, you'll build up, I think, the confidence.
That's really well said. And I think absolutely is reflected in the experiences that you've already shared. You seem really comfortable to throw yourself into new arenas and tell people around you, I'll take your wisdom in this process. And you've had some good results from that, I can see.
I mean, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You have to be fearless about failures. You have to be open to learning from the failures. It's really important. It's I was just reading this morning this football coach talking about what makes the difference between a quarterback who succeeds in the NFL and one who doesn't. And he said it comes down to how open you are to failing, because you're gonna fail. And if you are the kind of person who can learn from the failure, not be thrown, but oh my God, I'm worthless, I failed, I'll never, but just instead say, okay, what can I learn from that? Why did I fail? Why did that not work? What can I do differently this time? And plow ahead. That is going to be it's going to give you a better shot at succeeding. And I've seen that time and again. In fact, so I was elected the class speaker for our commencement at Brown. And because they do that weird thing at Brown where they don't get a famous person to speak, they get students. And what did I know to talk about, when I was 22 years old? But the theme of my speech turned out to be absolutely correct, which was, I said, look, as a history major, what you could see is that there were all these people throughout history who had these great intentions, and they all failed eventually. Even if you built the Roman Empire, eventually it collapsed. So what's most important is how you go about what we're about to do in our lives as we walk out these doors. It's the spirit that you bring to it. It's the decency of your approach, and it's your willingness to learn from those mistakes and then apply them and keep moving forward, because you have no choice. And that turns out to have been true about life. It's like, you're going to fail. Are you willing to learn from it? And I'm still failing. I'm still learning. And hopefully in there that leads to certain successes along the way.
So clearly motivation is not an issue for you, but if you could pinpoint it, what does keep you motivated specifically when you're going after things that are really big things to tackle?
I like convincing people of things. I like seeing a thing and getting other people to see it and having them go, oh yeah, right, yeah, that makes sense. And so somebody just yesterday sent me some promotional materials for that first startup I launched in 1998. And it was all about, hey, everybody, people are going to be watching video on their computers. And more people are, this was 1998, where the video you could get on a computer was like this big, postage stamp size, and burpy all the time, interrupted all the time. But clearly, given Moore's law, there was going to be leaps and bounds in technology over time. And sooner or later, probably sooner, we were all going to be watching a lot of video on in those days, laptops. And we were trying to convince the advertising industry that a video ad on a computer was going to be a lot more engaging than an ad that you saw on TV, because on a computer, you could actually take action. You could click and be taken to the sponsor's website. You could click and buy something. You could click and get more information about it. And the company on the other end could know who you were and know that you clicked and send you more stuff. But, send you more information about their product or send you samples of the product or what have you, a much better form of advertising. That was in 1998. It's obvious. It sounds obvious now, but 99% of people we pitched that to told us no. Part of motivation is knowing that they're absolutely wrong. You know, like, dudes, tell me the logical flaw in this beyond just, well, nobody's doing it yet. That, which is a standard answer, you know, when you have a fresh idea. Like, well, if it's so great, why isn't everybody doing it? Well, why isn't everybody doing it? Because there are people like you who aren't, you know, embracing this opportunity and not even willing to test it. So it's gratifying now to look and see, hey, sure enough, you know, that turned out to be true. Skip ahead 20, 30 years. And in 2020, I have two Gen Z kids, and they're sports fans. And I hate watching sports with them because they don't watch the game. They put the game on, but that's just an excuse to track their bets, track their fantasy, order food, give their friends a hard time, comment on highlights or whatever. And the game is, you know, and I'm sitting there trying to watch the game. And it inspired me to launch the company I currently run called Hang Media, which is a fan engagement platform that allows sports fans to watch games on TV, on their own TV at home, while they're in a Zoom room like this alongside famous athletes and celebrities. And I thought that'd be really fun for my son. And he might actually pay more attention to the game if there were famous athletes who he loves in the palm of his hand on his phone or on his laptop. And so we tried an alpha test, just a little small friends and family. Let's see if we could get an athlete who'd be willing to do this, and see if it would be fun for them and for the fans, and would it work technically and all of that. So we got Eli Manning and one of his New York Giant teammates to watch a Giant game on TV with this little friends and family group. And he loved it, and we loved it. And I turned into an instant 12-year-old. I'm wearing his jersey. He says my name, and I'm like, oh, Mr. Manning, you know, what was it like when you, whatever. And I knew that was the right thing. And he knew it too. You know, a year later, he launched the Manning Cast, which is now, you know, has popularized the idea of alternative ways of watching sports. People ask me all the time, well, are you so pissed about that? Well, first of all, he was a total gentleman, and he introduced us to some potential investors, but we hadn't done anything other than that one little experiment. And investors, they don't like ideas. They like products. Show me the thing and I'll put money into it. And so that didn't go anywhere, but I really appreciated his spirit there. But he turned it into this huge deal for him. And so it's gratifying to me to see that we were exactly right. And they don't even have the fan participation component of it. That's still just a TV show, the Manning Cast. It's just him and his brother Peyton watching the game, and you get to watch them watching the game. But I think the key with direct to consumer, which is where media is at today, the key to that is fan participation. Young viewers expect to be part of their entertainment. They expect their viewing experience to be communal, and they want authentic connection to athletes and influencers. I think they're already tired of the obvious product placement that these influencers are all, you know, willing to do. They want to know who you really are. And when you're spending 2 hours together watching a game, you really get to know who those athletes are. Anyway, long-winded answer of saying what drives me is the compulsion to show people a better way, a different way. Here's how it could be. What if we tried this?
Well, baked into that, inherently, there's going to be challenges, right? When you have a big idea, you want to get it across the line. Obstacles come up. And I'm wondering for you if there's a particular brand of challenge that just keeps coming up over and over again. Like no matter what it is you have in front of you, you're probably going to encounter this Achilles heel. What is it?
It's the technical expertise that people think you're supposed to have, because you're in a media tech business of one sort or another. I think they overemphasize the importance of the technology as opposed to the application of it. Most funders want you to be the creators of the technology because their dream is like what OpenAI is. It's the engine of technology underlying, everything. It's like, the first investors into Thomas Edison's company, saw that, oh my God, like this could, drive the entire economy. Everything is going to need electricity, right? But most companies don't do that. My iPhone, they didn't really invent the technology of it other than here's how to miniaturize a lot of these processes, and here's how to create a user experience that is superior to anybody else's. But they didn't invent the internet. They needed the internet to have been created. So that's the thing that's underlying the iPhone and everything else right now, TikTok and everything. But TikTok's not a technology, it's an application of technology. Yet you're always coming up against investors who will say, well, what's your moat? What's your defensible technology that nobody else can replicate? It's like, I don't know, what's Facebook's moat? TikTok came along and ate their lunch. Netflix came along and all they do is show movies. They do a lot of deep data analytics, and that's important. But that leverages technologies that other people use. So it's overcoming that mindset and being able to define yourselves as valuable, even though you don't own 100 patents. That's always been, that was true in 1998. That was a challenge, and it remains a challenge now. And I ran that AI platform, and that did have a group of really brilliant technologists who, interestingly enough, they didn't have trouble getting acquired by Apple, but we had trouble getting customers because this was 2018 and 19 is when I was there. And you'd have these major media companies, we would call on them to sell them the use of our very sophisticated AI, which would save them money, open up new lines of business for them, et cetera. And they would just look at us like we were speaking Greek. We were too technical for the marketplace, but we were just the right amount of technical to get acquired by Apple, which is in the business of using technology to power phenomenal, mind-blowing consumer experiences. So it's that yin and yang.
You may have answered this somewhere along the way here, but when you think back on your life, what's the biggest donut you'd say you'd ever taken? So biggest opportunity you said yes to or that you created, biggest goal, biggest dream. What comes up for you?
It's hard to say because, I told you I did that first reality programming. And then when I launched my first venture-backed startup, the Feed Room, we had a big vision about everybody ought to be streaming everything online. And we ended up creating the first ever, what is now called over-the-top or direct-to-consumer streaming product of any kind. What Netflix is today, we launched in 2004 when Netflix was still sending you DVDs in the mail. We created a CBS March Madness online. The idea being in the early stages of the March Madness tournament, in the opening 2 days, there are 4 simultaneous games being played back to back for 2 days. And having come out of CBS, I knew that that was always a big deal day because you could only broadcast one game at a time on linear TV, or as it was known in those days, TV. That's all TV could do was send you one game at a time. So at CBS, we would invite advertisers into our feed room where they could dial up whatever game they wanted. And it was catered, and there was liquor, and there was a party we were throwing for our very special guests. So then I leave CBS, I launch my startup, which was called The Feed Room, and I pitched the head of CBS Sports um, for four straight years. Like, hey, here's what you could do. You could charge fans to watch whatever game they want online. And he said no for 4 straight years. And then finally in 2004, he said yes. That was written up by a stock analyst as the birth of the new over-the-top industry. And we all see where that's gone since then. So I did that at CNN, where, it's easy to take chances when you're a startup because you're supposed to. But when I was recruited to go run CNN, they wanted to bring more of that technology flavor into journalism. And, but yet there's so much more at stake. There's this brand, that you have to treat, you have to put it up on the pedestal. And that can be a real inhibitor of innovation. And nonetheless, they really needed it because Fox was killing them. And so we managed to encourage innovation in an environment that had become very scared, and fear is the enemy of innovation. And we launched the Magic Touchscreen Wall, that you see John King do all the time. We did the first ever Facebook live stream, which was Obama's inauguration in 2009. We integrated Twitter into everything we did. We were the first network to even say the words Twitter on the air, and we used it as a news gathering tool. So those were all big innovations on a big scale. And then the AI thing was before everybody was smitten by AI. You just had to sort of see the possibility. So I'll let you decide which was the biggest donut. They were all pretty good. And the current donut is making media and marketing executives understand that direct-to-consumer media, what we know is streaming platforms and all of that, it's not a technological opportunity. It's a strategic opportunity, because when you have a direct one-to-one relationship with a consumer, you can know so much about, you can learn so much about them and make it truly a conversation. And that's what Hang is focused on, engaging fans so that they reveal more of themselves, what they love, what they want more of, and letting personalities like these athletes and celebrities reveal more of themselves. And in doing that, it becomes almost like a love story where you're bringing people together. Athletes are petrified about what happens when their career is over, and fans are so eager to connect with the famous who they love. And if you can bring them together, that can be super meaningful. But the vast majority of marketers and media executives who I know just think of it as a technology problem they have to solve. How do I get my product onto a phone? How do I improve how do I accelerate the speed of loading the app? I mean, it's like that's somebody's going to solve that, and somebody else is going to make it happen 20 times faster. And then quantum computing is going to come along and you won't even have to think about it. But in the meantime, what are you doing to leverage that relationship that you can now have? That, I think, is the huge opportunity in front of us right now. And we're trying to popularize the notion, that you ought to do more than simply make your signal available on a mobile device. Now, what do you do?
This has been fascinating to hear more about your story. There may be people who are watching this who have a donut of their own that they want to take. And it could still be an ideation phase, or it could be something that they've started to move towards, but they're looking for motivation to keep going. So let's sprinkle some encouragement. And what would you say to those people?
A few things. First of all, just don't worry about it. Just try it. Try it for yourself at first. There's so many tools available now. I mean, with OpenAI, with any of the AI tools, you have a staff available. And if you haven't learned how to prompt engineer yet, just take a Coursera course. They have some really good ones. I took a great one from Vanderbilt online. And you learn how to prompt the AI, and it really becomes like having a team. I don't know whether AI designed your backdrop there or not, but it could have. and it relieves you of having to hire anybody. So the cost goes away. Keep it private, but also try to find thought partners. They don't have to be people who always think like you. It's not terrible if they are similar to the audience that you would want for this. The end user of this product doesn't have to be a consumer facing thing. It could be a B2B solution. But try to enlist a team. And you'll start to just try things. You're be open to the idea that the initial idea isn't perfect. It's probably maybe in the right ballpark, but the wrong specific approach. That's always happened. I mean, no idea. I mean, people like to say, if you're still doing 4 years into your startup, the thing that you thought you were going to be doing when you started, you're doing something wrong, because it's always a process of iteration. Remember, Facebook was just, a dating app for Harvard kids, and now look what it is. TikTok was a completely different company, earlier. It was for teenage girls uploading karaoke, basically. So you don't know where the journey will take you or where your idea will take you. So be flexible, be open to the idea that you're right, but you're also wrong, and keep learning. And then along the way, find rabbis. Nobody succeeds at this stuff by themselves. I mean, Elon Musk was part of a group of people at PayPal who eventually kicked him out. He always ends up getting kicked out of his companies, but he this was a group of really smart people who got together and figured a thing out together. Eventually, you're going to want to do that and need to do that, because you can't possibly know everything about every aspect of what you might be trying to do. But just think small. Think about the stuff you know really well that you're really into, and think of a better way to do it, and just keep trying, keep iterating.
Wise advice, and hopefully that inspires some people to continue moving forward on their path, whatever that may be. So for those who want to follow you on your journey, or follow any companies that you are running on their journey, where can they find you? What link should I put in the description?
Hang.media, https://hang.media. That's got, examples of everything that we've done with some major brands. Toyota, Wells Fargo, Coke, Coors, Molson Coors, State Farm, et cetera, McDonald's, a lot. And personalities, we've worked with some really big names, Deion Sanders, and Shannon Sharp, and, a lot of them. And that's a good place to look.
Wonderful.
I would share one other thing, which is the thing my dad taught me, because he was an artist, and he came home one day, and I was drawing a picture for my first grade class. It was the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria discovering America, and I hadn't done the sky yet. I'd done the boats, and he said, "Oh, that's really good job. And why didn't you color in the sky?" And I said, "Because my blue crayon broke, so I don't have any blue." And he said something that's stuck with me to this day, which is, the sky doesn't have to be blue. It's your picture. It can be whatever color you want it to be. And that really blew me away. And not that I knew the word metaphor, but I sort of took it as a metaphor, I looked at everything moving forward. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. It can be whatever we decide it is. And, when I founded the Feed Room in 1998, and I explained to the engineers, all right, I want a big screen that plays the video that has to dominate the screen when you come to the Feed Room site. And they said, it can't be done. Like, you can't. I said, it's just a series of ones and zeros. Our site is going to have a big screen in the middle. Figure it out. And they did. And so it's that sort of faith that nobody else knows better than you. They really don't. Like, the world you see. Go make your world the way you want it to be. And you may be wrong. If you're wrong, you'll get bumped in the nose and you'll try it a few different ways, but eventually you can get people there. That makes the whole thing worth it. That is the just dessert, speaking of donuts.
Well, and I do love to speak of donuts. If I could sort of sum up Brown students in a story, I feel like that story would is in the running for being it. Like make the sky the color you want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really resonates for me. It was beautifully said. And so everybody be sure to check out those resources. And if you liked watching this video, be sure to like and subscribe. There's plenty of inspirational interviews still to come. But in the meantime, John, thank you so much for taking all this time and for sharing not only your story and your background, but so much wisdom that other people can use as inspiration.
Well, thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah. And to everybody who's watching this, please go out there, get inspiration, get donuts. Bye, everyone.